everyone, welcome back. It's Siobhan and this is part 2 of my little mini series aimed at my fair skinned friends out there who sometimes struggle to get foundations and concealers and primers pale enough or light enough for their skins. So like I mentioned in part 1 of this little mini series, which covers like primers and bases, which you can see here, and I'll also link to it below. This is really aimed at the fairest of the fair, so the girls and guys out there who almost always struggle to get foundations that are pale enough for them. So I'm talking about in MAC terms NW10, NC10, NW13, NC15, but not really above. So in this video, I am going to be sharing my foundation recommendations. Again, going no higher than roughly an NC15 in MAC terms. There will be a mixture of price ranges here. I will start with the more affordable and work my way up to the more high end. So I'm going to start off with one of the drugstore or pharmacy foundations, and this is Max Factor Ageless Elixir 2-in-1 Foundation and Serum, and this is in the shade Light Ivory number 40. So this is the only one I'd recommend for this kind of video because any other shade above this is too dark. This has an SPF of 15 in it as well though, which I think is great, especially when you're dealing with type 1 and type 2 skins, which generally do burn, and that's usually when you are that fair, you tend to be. Now that's not across the board. I know some other ethnicities who are generally a bit darker, can be very like milk bottle pale and not necessarily burn that easily, but especially if you're talking about Celtic skin, you do. Now, even though this is called Light Ivory number 40, it's not that dark. This shade here, I'd say, would be closest to an NW13 in MAC terms. So it is slightly pink based and it looks a bit deep when you put it on like that, but once it's blended out, it's actually quite lovely. So I do love this foundation. I love how it sits on the skin and I can wear it, but I would say it's ever so slightly a little bit too warm on my skin tone. So it would be more for the NWs out there, which means that if you're a little bit more pink based or have more of a pink undertone or a neutral undertone, I personally have more of like an ivory vanilla undertone kind of. So next we have another pharmacy or drugstore product, and this is the REVLON ColorStay, and this is a great foundation first of all just across the board, but the lightest colour, which this isn't, I actually just threw out some old ones, but the lightest colour, which is ivory, is very pale. I'd say it would be more like an NW10 to NW13. So that's a great one for anyone who has a warmer complexion, and I talk in MAC terms here. So when I say warm, I mean pink based, and when I say cool, I mean kind of yellow ivory based. But yeah, the ivory is great for anyone with a warmer complexion but who is very fair. But saying that, if you are more on the milk bottle white side, you probably would need to lighten it down. And I do have a couple of recommendations in a minute for white foundations that will help lighten down any foundation for you. Now this number 150 buff is actually my colour, so this would be a good match for anyone who is like an NC15, but during the depths of winter, sometimes when I am more white than normal, this might be ever so slightly too yellow. So this is grand for me now during the winter or during the summer. Not that I tan particularly during the summer, but I suppose you might get a little bit more light than normal and you go ever so slightly more like, I don't know, ivory more than white kind of thing. And that's what this is. So this is great for me during the summer. And during the winter I do mix in a lighter mixer, and I'll go on about that in a minute, but I think these are great foundations as well. Just the first 2 shades though. Then another foundation I love from the pharmacy or drugstore is this guy here, which is the MAYBELLINE Fit Me Foundation in number 110. Now this also has an SPF of 18 in it. The REVLON ColorStay does, yeah, this has an SPF of 20. So that's my favourite thing about the foundations for the very pale skin, is if they have an SPF. I think that's such a bonus. Now this is a lovely fluid foundation. This one particularly is for dry skin, but I do believe they've brought out new formulations now. I don't know if they're here in Ireland yet, but I know they are in the States. So there is like a matte one now and a dewy one. So I'm not sure if that will affect the colour, but the number 110 in this is fab. It is a little bit harder to get. I know in Galway they don't have the 110 here. I think you have to go to bigger Boots stores for that. But love this guy. It's just lovely, light, kind of ivory coloured, ivory to neutral, so this would be great for the NCs out there, and really love that, because the other 2 I've showed so far, well, this would be more of an NW, the ivory of this is NW, the buff is an NC, and now this would be like a neutral or an NC. And I have, let's see, one more drugstore foundation to show you, and it's the Bourjois Healthy Mix Serum. This is what I'm wearing today, so it gives you an idea of how it fits. It is definitely a more of a, you know, kind of vanilla or ivory tone. So it is yellow based, so definitely for you NCs out there. I'd say anyone who's like an NC 10 to 15 would get away with this, but if you are like very, very fair, you might need to bring it down onto your neck. I absolutely love this though, and I think that this is a slightly lighter shade than the matte one, because I just find the matte one can oxidize a little bit more, which is a big problem as well, I know, when you're fair. But I love the Bourjois Healthy Mix Serum in number 51, which I've heard of some people can be hard to get. I think 52 might be the lightest in a lot of places, but if you can get the 51, that's the one to go for. Now I'm going to be moving up so to slightly more high-end brands. I'll start with this guy, which is the Luxe Liquid Foundation by Glow Minerals, and this is in the colour Porcelain. Beautiful shade. It's actually quite a neutral shade. Another lovely, like very moisturising liquid foundation, and you can see there it's not very pink, not very yellow. It's actually very, very neutral on my skin, so I'd say it would be maybe closest to like an NW13, but maybe not quite as pink, I'm not sure. But I love this stuff. I think it just feels very, very luxurious on the skin, but I really, really love that very, very light shade. Again, it wouldn't suit milk bottle whites, which are the more like NW10s, but I will mention you guys once we kind of get further on down the line. Glow Minerals, I think you have to go online to buy them, so I'll try and find the link for that and leave it below for you. Next, I'm going to move on to my MAC foundation. So up until maybe about a year and a half ago, the lightest colour in MAC foundations for the Studio Fix anyhow was NC15, which I'm not even going to show in this video, believe it or not, because the NC15 of the Studio Fix Fluid is actually ever so slightly too dark on me, which when they released the NW13 and I gave it a go, I was like, that is such a better match, even though I am an NC, but the NC15 was just a little bit too deep. So the NW13 is a lovely, it's quite neutral, it's not like very pink or very warm at all, but I love this shade. I think it's just a lovely neutral shade, but it's just closer in colour depth to me. So I think you can see it there. I mean, you can definitely see it's a little bit pink, a tiny bit pink on my hand, but not ridiculously so, and then it just disappears there. So I absolutely love that. And then I do have a little sample of the NW10. This would be more for you milk bottle whites out there, but it still might have a little bit more depth, so I will show you what I would mix with it. But you can see that there. It's just a very, very, very light foundation, again slightly on the pink side. In Ireland we are of the Celtic skin variety, and you know, I know a lot of girls who are verging on like just Snow White, so some of them would not get away with this. But I do love that there is an SPF of 15 again in this, and that's fab. Same with the Luxe liquid. So that's one of the reasons why I'm showing you a lot of these foundations, is because they do have the SPF in them as well. Next we have the Armani Lasting Silk Foundation. Love this. The shade to go for is 2. I believe that's the lightest. I don't think there is a 1. As far as I know, I could be wrong, but as far as I know, this is the lightest. So again, this would be for NC girls out there, which means that you're yellow based. Now this is a lovely light one. So this would actually be closer to like an NC10, which I think is great. And this also has an SPF of 20 in it. Really like that. Now it is very, very expensive. You're talking more about the €40 mark to get those. But if you're looking for something that's yellow toned, but very, very light, that's one of my favourite ones to go for. So that is number 2 in the Armani. Okay, so now we're coming down to the end of the foundations. I should have showed this earlier on, but this is the MAC Studio Sculpt Foundation. Now, I was saying how I wasn't going to show the NC15 in the Studio Fix Fluid because I think it's too dark, but this is the NC15 in the Studio Sculpt, and it's actually a good bit lighter than the Studio Fix Fluid. So you can probably see there, even next to the Armani, it's actually very, very fair. So I'd actually say that's quite closer to NC10 rather than an NC15. The reason I think it runs lighter is because gel foundations tend to oxidize easier than liquid foundations, and that's probably why that is so much lighter than the Studio Fix Fluid, to allow for any darkening on the skin. Not everyone oxidizes, but a lot of people can. And this also has an SPF of 15. So again, that's the only one I'd recommend in that range. I don't think there's an NC13 in that, unless maybe it has come out since I stopped working for the brand, but as far as I know, it's just the NC15 in the pale colours. Next, for the final liquid foundation in a colour I'm going to show you, this is Illamasqua Skin Base SB02. This is, again, it's like a warm tone one, so it is pink based, and you can see there it's very light. So I'd say this is an NW10. This would be great for milk bottle whites out there. So I think you know who I'm talking about when I say that. You know, the people out there with the skin that is like the next shade up pretty much from like full on white. So you can see there that's very light. This would be too pale for my own personal skin, for my own skin tone, but it's a really lovely light porcelain shade. So that's a great one. I am actually the next shade up, which is this guy here, which is SB03, and this is it is actually quite fair. I'd say it's just the NC15, but you can see there it's quite yellow compared to the SB02. Isn't that what it is? Yeah, so I'm 3 there, which is slightly more yellow. That's what would blend into my neck, and then this is, so you can see there's quite a jump between the two. Now, I did mention about mixers earlier on, or toners. So what I mean by that is you can get white foundations that you mix into your other foundations to lighten them up, which is absolutely great. I do believe that CoverFX, that American or US brand, I do believe they have these drops that you can use for it. And I think there are a few other brands that do it. I don't have a lot of those other ones. So what I would suggest is, I know you can get the white one of this, which is the white skin base. It's pure snow white. And then what you would do is just mix a little bit of that in with any of your other foundations. So if you're more on the like oily side, I'd say maybe go for something like this, which is the skin base, because it has a slightly more kind of powdery liquid feel to it. And yeah, another great foundation. It didn't work so well on my skin, but it does work well on loads of other people's skin. So just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for you. Definitely worth trying out if you can go in and maybe get a sample. But another one that I would use quite heavily myself, and this is in my kit, is this guy here, which is the white face and body, even though mine seems to have turned kind of a beige colour, but that's fine. I'd say it's just been sitting there for a while. And this is much more liquidy, and it is white once it's on. So you can see there, this is a very fluid white foundation. That's exactly what it is. I would suggest this more towards the dry skin people out there, and this is water resistant, so it is a great one to have. I would use the face and body a lot in my kit, especially for bridal work, because it does last quite well in humid weather. But if you're very oily, I wouldn't say it's the best one for you. But yeah, this is the 120ml. Now, there are smaller sizes available. I'm not sure if you can get the white one in the smaller size. I think it's only in the bigger size, but this would last you forever anyhow. And you don't need a huge amount. I'd only use a few drops to lighten up any foundations. But this is what I personally use to lighten up foundations on myself. When I do find them a little bit too dark. And then I'm going to finish off this part of the video by showing you a couple of cream foundations which I really like. So this is a Cryolan palette that I made up in Charles Fox in London. This is the TV white, which is basically a white, full-on white cream makeup, but just trying to show you here. There you go. So this is great for mixing. You can mix and match these together if you want to. I actually love these kind of foundations. You can mix them with primers or just kind of buff them in as they are. Great for the kit. So that's the TV white. That would be a great one for anyone who is near on white to have, because you can mix it in with anything else. So then the next one is Alabaster, which is that center one there. That's more like an NC maybe 10, NC 13. Even though I know that doesn't exist, but just to give you an idea. And then the next one, which is Ivory, would be this guy here, which is like NC15. So I probably would be either of those two, probably this all over and then that one to highlight a little bit. But those are nice ones. So you have TV White, Alabaster and Ivory, and those are the Cryolan colours. So what you could do as well there is buy them in stick form. You don't obviously have to get a palette. And then I'm going to finish off with one of my NUD cream makeups, and it's this top guy here, which is WB2, which means warm base 2, I think. But anyhow, it is that. It's like an NW10, I'd say it's like an NW10/NW13. So it one is a warmer shade and very, very fair. So this would be great for any of the very, very light skins out there. I actually use that as a highlight, or I mix it in with this one here, which is CB2, but it's actually a little bit too dark for me, so that's why when I mix the two together I kind of get the perfect shade. But that's WB2. Obviously you don't need to buy a big palette like that, you could buy one little thing to put it in. And yeah, so those are my foundation recommendations. Obviously there are loads more out there, but they're just the ones that I personally have in my own kit that I would tend to use on the lighter of skin tones. So if you want to see part 1, like I said, it will be linked to below and linked here somewhere. And then part 3, which will be my powder recommendations, is going to go up tomorrow on Thursday, and then on Saturday will be the last 2 parts, which will be concealers first of all, and then highlighters, contour and bronzer. Yes, so that's it. And if you found yourself looking at a lot of those swatches going, that's too dark, that's too dark, that's definitely going to be too dark, then you definitely need to look into getting yourselves one of these white toners. Now they are white foundations, but I would call them a toner because they'll tone down the shade or like the colour of any foundation. So like I said, there's loads of brands out there. Just look it up on Google, it's your best friend. But the ones I'm most familiar with, I suppose, are the Face and Body by MAC, and then the Illamasqua white one as well. But definitely highly recommend getting a white toner to mix in with your foundations. So if you have any questions for me, guys, leave them below, and I hope this was helpful. So thanks a million for watching, guys. Salam.